Welcome to My Weight Live, everyone. We have a very special show for you tonight featuring dietitian Danielle Aldous, and she's going to be talking about what people need to know about losing weight and keeping it off. It's going to be a fantastic show, but before we get started, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what's on your mind. Danielle, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Ansley. Thanks for having me back. I've been looking forward to it.
I'd like to start out by talking about the fact that for many people, diet and exercise alone is not enough to help them reach a healthier weight. So we're going to be talking a lot about healthy eating tonight, but tell us, before we get started with all that, why is there more to weight management than just eating less and moving more for many people?
Because weight management is a chronic health condition, a chronic medical condition that is quite complex and has a multitude of factors that influence its outcomes. And diet and exercise, although two important factors that we have some degree of control over, are just two of many. We estimate probably over 300 different factors that influence our weight, many of them genetic. And yet, what we can do is we can focus on the things that we can control, which include diet and exercise.
Danielle, we know that healthy eating is a critical part of weight management and, more importantly, good health overall. There are so many different diets and eating approaches out there, though. What do you consider to be the key components of a healthy diet?
We are encouraging people to be focused on what I often call real food, less processed food, foods that they're preparing at home with simple ingredients, definitely the use of some culinary ingredients like, a little sugar, a little fat, a little salt. But when you're cooking that at home to make tasty, healthy dishes, it's far less than what food manufacturers might be using to, create ultra-processed dishes. So very much we're getting people to think about getting kind of back to basics, definitely including their fruits and vegetables, focusing a little bit more on whole grains and lean protein choices, healthy fat choices, but kind of keeping it simple and keeping it real and making sure that they're foods that they have a little bit more influence on right in their own kitchen.
We're going to take a break here and do our trivia question. If you answer tonight's question, you will get some delicious, healthy baking recipes. These have been tweaked to be just a little more nutritious without compromising the taste, and you will get them for free if you answer tonight's trivia question, which is, true or false, adding fiber to your diet can help you feel fuller for longer? Is that true or false? Does fiber help you feel more full? Put your best guess in the comments and you will get those baking recipes delivered to your Facebook Messenger inbox. And folks, if you're listening to what Danielle is saying and you're thinking about someone you know who might find this helpful, please tag them in the comments or share it in your feed so they can tune in too. We're trying to help as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help in letting other people know about the show. So we know that almost every eating approach has success stories, but one thing that has become clear over the last couple of years is how ultra-processed foods can cause weight gain. What guidance do you give to the people you work with about ultra-processed foods?
When we look at foods of that nature, they're very, very stimulating to our appetite, and they sometimes get difficult to control our intake around. Plus, they're often very nutrient poor. So when we're working with people to help improve their diet, we're very much looking to try to bring back in some foods that are unprocessed or minimally processed, still respecting that desire to have something that's quick and convenient. But aiming for something that's quick and convenient doesn't mean we have to go to ultra processed. There are lots of very nutritious food items that we can build simple meals around that still give us those key nutrients that we're looking for: quality carbs, fiber content, healthy fats, and satiating proteins, with just a little bit of those things that make foods tasty and delicious, and not so much that we're overstimulated, but rather satisfied.
So speaking of ultra-processed foods, we know many people struggle with specific tempting foods or trigger foods. How do you encourage people to manage them? Should we give in to cravings or avoid them? What should we do?
We very much work with people to find that workable balance, right? To understand that there is a difference between hunger and appetite, or needing times when we need to fuel versus times when we're experiencing cravings. And at our clinic, we try to break it down into kind of 4 different types of hunger that you might experience. We talk about stomach hunger, that true need for fuel, and we help people to acknowledge and recognize the signals their body's giving them when they are in need of fuel. And then we also can experience mouth hunger, just that desire for a certain taste and texture. We can experience what we call head hunger, which is kind of that learned behavior or these associations that we have with food. And that might be around, if we're feeling lonely, let's say, like maybe certain foods remind us of certain people, and we're craving that ability to kind of connect. And we might actually, get the feeling through the food in that sense of connection. Or heart hunger, which is kind of like that as well. That's that last example is really leading into kind of heart hunger. And we talk about helping people to kind of pause and notice what kind of hunger that they're having so that they can make a more conscious decision, a more mindful decision about how to respond. So it's really about working on understanding our body's cues, being a little bit more mindful and putting ourselves back in control to respond to our urges or our hunger in an appropriate way.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about, when we talk about mindful eating, I usually think about, paying a lot of attention while I'm eating. But what I hear you saying is, really the time to start being mindful is when we start thinking about food. Like, as you said, am I experiencing stomach hunger? Am I really hungry right now? Or is it more kind of a habit hunger, mind hunger, like, oh, I'm about to watch a TV show and I usually have a snack. So I really like this idea of kind of like asking ourselves, like, what am I really experiencing, and trying to be more mindful that way.
I usually encourage my patients to think about an acronym that will pause their action so that they have that ability to be in the moment. Because when you're in the moment, you have the ability to choose your next action. Do I want my next action to be sort of the habit that I'm used to having, that cascades to a place where I'm not comfortable to go? Or do I want my next action to be perhaps a little bit more restraint, redirecting my behavior in a different direction, changing my location, shifting gears to a different physical or mental activity so that I can kind of rewrite that story? So some acronyms that we will use would be WAIT. What am I thinking? What am I telling myself in this moment in a curious way? Or STOP is another one where it's about slowing down, taking notice, opening up to what I am experiencing. It's okay to feel the emotions that I feel. And then pursuing something that is in line with my values.
So you referred earlier to two interesting words. You said in some cases we can be overstimulated by foods, and really what we're trying to be is satisfied with what we eat. How do you encourage people to kind of identify what am I experiencing and move towards that satisfaction rather than being very stimulated?
It's tough because this is one of the areas where the very nature of obesity changes our hunger and fullness signals. And so again, here's where I think people are probably looking to slow down in the moment of eating and really notice, the taste of food, the texture of food. Am I enjoying this food? Is the experience of eating this food pleasurable? Is it tasty? Or is it just, sometimes people will begin to notice that foods that used to be very stimulating to them, things that they would eat and feel out of control eating, when they stop and slow down, they can really begin to notice that, okay, maybe the first bite or two I enjoyed, but after that, I'm not really enjoying it anymore. So can I find that point where, I'm able to stop, or maybe even choose a food that I do that is much more satisfying to me, that as I'm eating it, I'm enjoying this food and just getting that pleasure out of it and not feeling that it leads to more and more and more.
In case you're just joining us, we're here with dietitian Danielle Aldous, talking about all the different aspects of a successful weight loss journey. We're giving away some delicious baking recipes if you answer tonight's trivia question, which is, true or false, adding fiber to your diet can help you feel fuller for longer. Is that true or false? Does fiber help you feel full? Put your best guess in the comments and you will get those tasty baking recipes, including recipes for biscotti, almond cake, and muffins delivered to your Facebook Messenger inbox. Danielle, we know a lot of people identify as emotional eaters. What do you recommend for people who tell you that they struggle with that?
Well, first of all, we help to normalize it because that is one of the things that is common with obesity. So, in terms of the genetic interplay of obesity and the fact that a large portion of the genes that confer obesity are in our brain. And so we do know that many people who have this disease do experience more of that emotional connection with food, and sort of their emotional waves tend to be a little higher and stronger, and it's one of the important components that we have to work on in terms of behavior change when it comes to working on our diet and how we are managing, because your eating and your diet is not just what and how much you eat, but it is also sort of how and why we eat, and how we work on sort of some of those restraint behaviors at times too. So dietitians are very much practitioners of what we call medical nutrition therapy, which is not just about providing education about foods, but also about counseling to change behaviors around what and how much you eat.
So another question for you. Do you notice that people who've been on highly restrictive diets are more likely to engage in kind of uncontrolled eating or binging? Have you noticed a connection there?
For all of us, certainly binge eating is kind of another medical condition within this realm, right? And so when we look at people, we're always working to assess, is there a binge eating disorder along with their obesity condition here too? And we might use some slightly different tools and strategies that are specific to binge eating in that case. But definitely when we restrict, for most people, when you say, no, you can't have any, almost immediately this little inner rebel creeps up and says, what do you mean I can't have any? I want it. And so I very much think that when we are talking about healthy eating, we are understanding that, in many cases, all foods can fit. And yet, for some people, there are foods that are just very, very difficult for them to exercise some restraint around. And so if those foods, often those foods are not particularly nutrient-dense foods either, very interestingly. So if that is the case, we work to set you up for success by trying to limit those really difficult foods to be in control around, and make sure that we're planning your eating pattern with lots of foods at the ready that you can, eat in a way that you feel you have control.
So Danielle, you've really laid out this very nice framework for us of, really trying to be mindful about when we're hungry, what we're hungry for. How do you encourage people to implement kind of the 80-20 approach in their lives? Like, how do we figure out what's the right balance of like very healthy, nutritious foods and kind of the occasional treat or tempting thing that we're giving into a craving for?
80-20 is an understanding that we don't have to be so rigid, right? That it's okay to have some of our favorite foods, even if those don't wear a health halo, right? That it's okay to have those things from time to time, and that each one of us has got to kind of figure out how often is enough for me, right? Like, how often can I include this and still feel that I've had that little bit of an indulgence, that pleasure of that food, and yet I'm generally moving towards the goals and outcomes that I'm seeking. That I'm generally staying on track with my health goals.
Is losing weight quickly a bad thing? Do you find that helping someone kind of like jumpstart weight loss with a more structured program initially is helpful?
It can be. It can be very helpful. Again, we're working with human psychology here, and we like those quick wins. We want to kind of be encouraged. We want to be able to boost our confidence. Science generally tells us that whether we lose weight quickly or gradually and slowly, it doesn't really matter for our long-term outcomes as long as we're losing it, in a way that is healthy and nutritious. So, quick starting with a more intensive medical program can be very important for people. It can help them to break a cycle that they're caught in. We often think of the situation where a person has been using perhaps more intensive insulin therapy for helping with their blood sugars, and their weight has tracked up over time. So they get caught in this cycle of higher weight, requiring more insulin increasing weight. And so using a more intensive therapy to help break that cycle, allow for less insulin use, allow for them to get more active, allow for them to get out of that cycle of sort of the low blood sugars and treating, can really be an important way to help put them back on a healthier weight management and diabetes management path.
So for those folks that you're kind of describing, is that a situation where utilizing meal replacement programs might be something that would be helpful?
I think so. And certainly we've got good evidence to say that. There's a number of large-scale trials that have looked specifically at the situation of weight and diabetes that have used meal replacements. And from those, we can learn things about using meal replacements in the context of weight management alone, even without diabetes. So we know that part of what makes staying on track with healthy choices challenging is that we make a lot of decisions in the run of the day, a lot of food decisions, a lot of non-food decisions, and that part of our brain that's all about planning and executing and restraining is really kind of like a battery, and it does drain over time. And when it drains, we are left with our automatic part of our brain that is always kind of switched on for, what can we eat? Let's go eat. Where's the food? So by using a meal replacement, it helps us to reduce the number of food decisions that we have to make in the run of a day and allows us to really focus on quality decisions for that more limited amount of meal planning that we have to do.
So for the people you've seen be successful in your clinic, are there specific consistent habits or approaches you've seen that really helps them?
Yes. So I would say unequivocally, the biggest predictor of success is engaging in care, showing up, coming when you're having a success, especially coming when you are struggling. And that's probably one of the biggest messages that we try to get across at our clinic is that we are not here to judge you. And very often we'll say to our clients, you probably have spent more time judging yourself very harshly before you come and say, I need some help. And the shorter you can make that time, before you say, I'm human, I've made a mistake, and I need some help, or I need some more knowledge, or I need a new tool, and you come and say, can I have some help? The better. So there are some other qualities, people who are willing to understand that change enduring change happens from within. We tend to think about the things that are around us, but we really do have to sort of start with inside too. Changing a little bit of our mindset and attitude and just being ready to make some change. But by far, engaging in the process is what leads to success.
So you work at the Leaf Clinic in Ottawa, and I want to ask you a few questions about that. Specifically, how does someone figure out whether seeking out a clinic with medical support is the right thing for them? Is there things we need to have tried and not been successful with? How does someone assess whether that's the right place for them to go?
It's a really good question, because I think when I first started working in this area, I would have said that it is somebody who's tried other things and who needs a new approach, needs something different, or needs to add on to those other tools that they've already built, and maybe add some stronger tools. But I do think we think about it differently now, and really prevention and treatment are important in chronic health conditions. So if you feel you need some help, if you feel you could strengthen your skills and strategies, and there's any degree, if there's some degree of risk of, obesity for you, we're happy to help. We're happy to provide you with some help and support. Now, having said that, at our particular clinic, this is a condition that more and more people are saying, I could use help with this, and more people are struggling, given the circumstances that we have all experienced over the last couple of years. It's been really difficult for the condition of obesity. So we are experiencing higher referrals and higher volumes that we are trying to help. So I definitely think that if you are needing some new tools, if you are wanting to take a different approach, if what you have done in the past just isn't working for you anymore, then come and let's explore what other things we can do. What can we add to your toolkit?
So I ask this of every person we've spoken with lately. What is the number one thing you wish people knew about weight loss?
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's nothing you did wrong. And it can be managed. You can change. There is hope. And you don't have to do it alone. You can ask for some help.
Danielle, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been such a wonderful conversation as always.
Excellent. Thank you.
And a big thank you to everyone watching at home. We so appreciate you all being here with us and chatting with us in the comments. Before we go, here's the answer to tonight's trivia question. True or false, adding fiber to your diet can help you feel fuller for longer? It is true. If you didn't get to answer the trivia question, but you'd still like those baking recipes, leave a comment for us and tell us what you thought of tonight's show. We will be back with a new episode in a few weeks. Until then, please stay safe and take good care. Good night.